Jay has poured his heart and his soul into everything that he's done in the officiating world. And we are very fortunate to have Jay in our presence tonight. We get an opportunity to talk to Jay about his career, where he came from, his family origins, where he is going, and all the journey in between. So Jay, without further ado, I will pass the microphone on to you and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and where you've been.
Well, Larry, thank you very much for having me. This is quite an honor to do this interview, and I really appreciate all the effort that's been put in to make this happen. I'm originally from Hope, BC, 100 miles east of Vancouver, a small logging town, and 2,800 people when I grew up there. So very small, with a lot of typical small town values like so many people across Canada and the US. I graduated high school in 1985. I should back up. I played hockey till I was about 16, but realized that with pretty much certainty that my chances of getting to the NHL as a player were not going to happen. So I wanted to try to find another vehicle that would get me to the NHL. And I decided to start officiating. So I officiated in Hope, working everything from men's league games at 16 years old with some of my teachers that I saw the next day having to give them penalties, to all brands of all divisions of minor hockey. I graduated high school in 1985, moved to New Westminster, British Columbia, and proceeded to try to advance to the junior hockey ranks, which I was able to do. In 1985, I started working in the BC Hockey League. Back then it was called the BC Junior Hockey League, for those who remember those days. Worked a year in that league, and then subsequent the next year in 1986, I was given the opportunity to officiate in the Western Hockey League, which I officiated in for 4 years, and then was offered a position with the National Hockey League in August of 1990. The offer they gave me was to work half my games in the American Hockey League and half my games in the National Hockey League. So I was a probationary or a 40-40 linesman. I worked 1 year in Niagara Falls, Ontario, when I was under the 40-40 program. I was hired full-time next year in 1991 and moved to San Jose. It was the first year that the Sharks came into the NHL. Lived there for a year, then moved back to Vancouver. Stayed in Vancouver for 4 years until I made the move to Phoenix, Arizona in 1996, and spent the majority of my career out of Arizona. Finished up my career in St. Louis, Missouri, where I currently reside. And as Larry mentioned, it was 27 years, and it was a wonderful experience.
So your father was part of the community from a recreation standpoint, from a sports standpoint. What was his connection with sport?
So if you go back in my father's past as a boy and a young man, he grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, and he was a soccer player, a very good soccer player. He also played water polo and cricket. He competed in the 1968 Pan Am Games in water polo, and he was a tremendous all-around athlete. I think what he loved about sport was the coaching side of it, and he ended up being and starting the Hope Otter Swim Club in 1969. It was a summer swimming club in the BCSSA, and he coached until 1990. And I think not only myself and my brother, but there were so many young people that my father had an opportunity to not just shape their lives in the form of swimming, but to help their development as young men and women. And so it's a legacy that I'm very proud of.
What does your life look like, and what has your life looked like from a mentoring standpoint where you're pouring your life into others?
Well, I think towards the end of my career, no different than so many people that came before me in that job, I was in more of a mentorship role, working with a lot of young linesmen, guys under 5 years seniority, just trying to help with their development the way people did for me, teach you how to be a pro, teach you the difference between pro hockey and minor pro hockey and amateur hockey. So that kind of started towards the end of my career, which ended in 2016. I think what I'm excited about is what I've kind of been getting involved in now in St. Louis, is to get back into hockey with the Missouri Ice Hockey Officials Association and doing some work at their camps, and hopefully getting out and seeing some of their young officials and doing some evaluation. So like I said, basically just doing what so many countless people, yourself included, did for so many and for other people in their careers. So it's very rewarding to be in that position right now. I'm excited about being back in hockey. I kind of stepped away for a few years, and it feels really exciting to get back, especially in this kind of a capacity.
What would a development program look for you, and how do we encourage more of our minority groups, more of our underprivileged groups? How do we develop that group and prepare them for an opportunity in hockey?
Yeah. Well, I think you just touched on it, an opportunity. As we all know, hockey is a very expensive sport, and it requires a lot of expense in equipment, expense in travel, expense in ice time. So traditionally, hockey has been very hard for kids that come from a different socioeconomic background to be able to play because their parents can't afford it. So I think just in partnership with, in conjunction with what the NHL started probably 20 some years ago, making hockey a more diverse sport, making it more accessible for other people, for people of color, for girls, for everybody. I think we have to continue to do that. Doing that, though, takes money. And if you're going to give help to kids that don't have the economic background to play this great game, there has to be more of a corporate involvement, in my opinion, to be able to provide equipment and pay for ice time and pay for travel, because that's the only way kids will be able to have the opportunity to play this great game, because it does serve challenges in terms of the cost of playing it, whether you're just starting out in squirt hockey or you're all the way up to, trying out for a junior team.
What did you witness? What did you see modeled before you as you were growing up in Hope, BC?
Well, and that's an excellent question. I think the biggest thing I saw, and my brother and I were talking about this the other day, is that the commitment that my parents and all of my friends and my teammates' parents had in that small town to make sports available for their kids, whether they were coaching or driving or going to practices. And these were, like I said, Hope was a logging town. So a lot of the guys that coached my brother and me, they worked in the bush all day. They were up at like 4 a.m. to work a manual labor, hard, dangerous job, and then came home, ate dinner real quickly, and then went to the rink to coach hockey. My father used to always say success is where preparation and opportunity meet. And my father was, I think, as I had shared with you before, a disciplinarian, and both my mother and he did not accept not trying your best and not working as hard as you could and practicing your craft, whether that was your schoolwork, whether that was a part-time job, a paper route, or playing sports. So for me, success was always about preparation, and it was about opportunity. And when you had the opportunity to show what you had prepared for, and it didn't happen all the time, but I think that is always a good recipe for success.
So, if your father was alive today, Jay, what would he be the most proud of what you've done in your life?
Um, I mean, I think, my career itself, of course, he would be very proud. He was able to see me work in NHL games before he passed away. But I think he would probably be as equally proud of kind of the direction that my life is starting to take now in terms of making an impact for young people, because my father was all about that. He didn't get paid to coach the swim club. As I said, he was one of those parents that worked a job and then coached swimming, practices twice a day in the morning and at night, swim meets on the weekend. So I think he just would be proud of me moving in a direction where I can give back to a game that gave me so much.
What advice do you pass along to them?
Oh, wow. I think in a one-word answer or in a one-sentence answer, I think just believe. You have to believe in yourself and be realistic too, because when you try to ascend to a level in sport or to a high level of education, there is always going to be doubts and there's always going to be failures and there's always going to be times where you're questioning yourself. But I think belief in yourself and believing in yourself, for me, looking back at my career, was one of the strongest tools that I had in my toolbox to be able to just just grind it out and just realize that if something is worth it and if something that you are after, you want to attain it, you have that power to do that. And again, I was very fortunate with the parents that I had. They instilled that in my brother and I from a very, very young age. So I had that as a weapon in my arsenal. And I know for other people, sometimes they didn't have maybe the childhood that I had, but there's still so many programs now, and there's so much opportunity. Looking back from when you and I were in the Western Hockey League in the '80s to where things have gone now, not just at the junior hockey league level, but even at the minor hockey league level, in terms of providing opportunities for kids that have show promise and show an instinct for being an elite performer, is just believe in yourself.
What's your sense? What's your feeling of, as we head into Black History Month? Everyone knows that you're the first Black linesman in the National Hockey League. You're the first Black referee in the National Hockey League. What does that look like, and what does that mean for you personally, holding that crown, holding that honor as you were in the U.S. officiating hockey?
Mhm. Well, I think the word that you just used is very fitting. It's an honor. When I started my career, I wanted to make it to the NHL as a linesman. I didn't put a lot of thought into the fact that I had a Black parent and a white parent. But as my career continued, living in the United States, seeing some of the challenges that are still faced in certain parts of that country, of the United States and Canada, I think it gave me a greater sense as I continued my career, and probably really has hit home since I retired, in terms of me being a role model or someone that somebody can look up to, in terms of saying, well, he kind of looks like me, maybe I can do this. And for that boy or that girl, I think that's a valuable role that I could play. And like I said to you, it's an honor. No different than the tireless work that Willie O'Ree has done for the National Hockey League, being the first Black player and being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think when you can give back to a game that has given me so much, and probably Willie would say the same thing, I think that's a pretty special thing to be able to be in that position.
Jay, where are we headed? Where are we going? Where do we find Jay Sharrers for the rest of 2021? What does your future look like?
Well, I think, as I alluded to, I'm really excited about an opportunity I've had with Missouri Ice Hockey Officials Association, and getting a lot more involved in that, and just being able to do what I said I want to do in this chapter of my life, which is to try to give back in a field that I have a lot of experience in, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I think for me to be able to pass that on to some young girl or boy, and give them opportunities that were given to me when I was going to officiating schools or having evaluations when I was 16, 17, 19 years old, I think that's something for me that I take uh, to heart, in terms of setting off on this next chapter in 2021, and moving forward.